So now, let us prepare our hearts and minds for a time of meditation. I invite you to find a comfortable position in your seats. Close your eyes if you wish, and take a few deep breaths. Let go of any distractions or worries that might be on your mind.
Pour yourself in me. Pour yourself into my heart. Pour yourself in me. Pour yourself into my heart. Oh, wonderful Spirit. Oh, wonderful Spirit. And pour your joy in me. Pour your joy into my heart. Pour your joy in me. Pour your joy into my heart. Oh, wonderful Spirit. Oh, wonderful Spirit. And pour your love in me. Pour your love into my heart. Pour your love in me. Pour your love into my heart. Oh, wonderful Spirit. Oh, marvelous Spirit.
Now, at this time, I invite you to continue in the energy of that beautiful music, those beautiful words. With each breath we take, I invite you to surrender a little more deeply. With each breath that you take, let your body become more relaxed. With each breath, allow the mind to become quiet, not trying to stifle thoughts, but simply not reacting to our thoughts. Allowing everything to be just as it is in this very moment. No resistance, no striving, just being. breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat, we come closer to wholeness simply through the desire for wholeness. Being willing to surrender, being willing to grow, being willing to become. Being willing and then allowing. Let your breath take you deeper into the stillness within your own heart, within your own soul. Breath by breath, we go into that deep silence where all is made whole, all is healed, prospered, guided, harmonized. Letting go of all human concerns for the moment, entering into the deep silence of perfect wholeness, healing, and abundance. We rest in that silence for a few moments. We let go, we let God. We rest in the awareness of the silence, in the silence. And as we return our awareness from the silence to the world of sights and sounds, we bring with us the peace, the wholeness, the healing, the guidance. We bring forth whatever is needed in our life and in the lives of all those whom we love. And ultimately, to our world, our planet, we bring peace, the peace that passes all understanding.
I am open to the world. I will never be alone. I surrender to my heart. I allow myself to feel. I am open to the world. I have never been without. All I need is in me now. I allow my eyes to see the great reality. I'm open to the world. I will never be alone. I surrender to my heart. I allow myself to feel. I am open to this world. I have never been without. All I need is in me now. I allow my eyes to see the great reality. The great reality. This great reality.
The music ministry of David Trulli. Thank you, David. That was beautiful. Always brings a little, makes me a little verklempt when I hear that song. Thank you. Our guest speaker today, Robert Brumet, I have to say, has brought many of us to having our eyes open to the world. Through his teachings, through his writings, through his ministry. I had the honor of having Robert as being one of my teachers in seminary. And he opened our eyes through teachings about Teilhard de Chardin and Ken Wilber, of all people. And boy, that really opened our eyes. Robert is a master of insight meditation. I've attended silent retreats with Robert. Been teaching, bringing truth to us through many venues for over 30 years. It's just a joy to have the author of our theme for the year, The Quest for Wholeness, here with us today. Robert Brumet, thanks for being here. So good to see you.
Thank you, Richard. It's so good to see you once again. And it's so good to see everyone and to meet the folks in your ministry. This is a great delight for me. So thank you for the opportunity, Rich. Can you all hear me okay? The volume good? Great. Okay. The Quest for Wholeness. The term quest means that, or implies that, we are on a journey. Quest is a journey, but a journey to where? It's not an external journey, it's a journey to a wholeness that lies within us. So that's one of the paradoxes, is that it's a journey to here and now. It's a journey to right now. It's a journey to right here. Another paradox is that we are already whole. So the journey really is to realizing that we are whole. The journey is to realizing what we already are. That's the great paradox of the spiritual path. A story that illustrates this, that one of my very favorite stories that illustrates this paradox, is called the Golden Buddha story. Some of you may have heard it before. It's a true story that comes out of the 1950s, I believe, and it was in Southeast Asia. There was a Buddhist monastery that had this statue, a huge statue of a clay Buddha. I think the statue was like 10 feet high. It was just very huge. And that clay Buddha had been in that monastery as far back as anyone could remember. And they did some remodeling in the monastery, and the remodeling required moving the Buddha statue. And in the process of removing it, part of it was cracked. There was a crack in it. And so they tried to fix it, but you couldn't quite get it back to the way it was supposed to be. And just one night, out of curiosity, the abbot of the Zen monastery decided to take a look at that clay Buddha statue and see what was going on. And he got in the meditation room where the Buddha was. It was dark. And he pulled out a flashlight and he started looking around, and he started shining the flashlight into the place where he saw a crack in the Buddha, the largest crack. And when he shined the flashlight into the crack, he saw something glimmer, something glinting, reflecting. Kind of surprised him. So the next day he called in the workers to actually make the crack a little wider and to begin to explore what was inside. And lo and behold, they discovered that this clay Buddha was really not made of clay. It was made of gold. It was covered in clay, but the Buddha originally was solid gold. And evidently, many centuries prior, there were some marauders going through the village, destroying everyone and everything. And the Zen monks, knowing that the Buddha, certainly the gold Buddha, would be carried off, probably melted down by the bandits. So they covered it up with clay to make it look like it was worthless to the robbers, the thieves. And sure enough, they left it alone. So that clay Buddha, the clay protected the gold, and yet it covered up the gold. That's a great paradox. And it's such a parallel to what happens to us as well. We are solid gold, so to speak, inside. We are pure, whole, perfect, valuable beyond price. But in order to survive, we cover ourselves up with clay, so to speak. We hide our gold. We hide our perfection. So the quest for wholeness is somewhat like discovering the gold within the clay Buddha. We are each the golden Buddha. We've each been covered with the clay of many years living on this earth, many experiences. So the question is, how do we realize this gold that we are? How do we recognize what we already are? Well, interestingly enough, we go back to the story of the golden Buddha and ask the question, how was it that they discovered the gold? Well, they discovered a gold because there was a crack in the clay Buddha. And were it not for that crack and looking into that crack and examining it in great depth, they would not have discovered the gold that the Buddha really was. So the great paradox is, again, we're full of paradoxes here. We begin the quest for wholeness by looking at those places where we seem to lack wholeness. We look at the cracks, but the cracks are not in the reality. The cracks are not in the gold. The cracks are in the clay. The cracks are in our human nature. So by looking at what appears to be less than whole in our human nature, we discover what is truly whole and valuable beyond price, the gold that we are. So what are the cracks in the clay Buddha? The cracks in the clay Buddha are all of the sufferings and the problems and the things we experience that we don't like. So-called problems, so-called difficulties. There's a book I read many years ago called Illusions by Marcus Bach. Some of you may be familiar with it. And in that book, Illusions, it says there is no such thing as a problem without a gift for you in its hands. There's no such thing as a problem without a gift for you in its hands, that we ask for the problems because we desire the gifts. So let's look at the process of finding the gift. Let's look at the process of shining the flashlight into that crack in the clay. So we begin by recognizing our own need for healing. And I'll begin by defining what I mean by healing. To me, healing is simply moving closer to our innate wholeness. Anything that makes us more aware, more conscious of our innate wholeness, makes us more conscious of the gold that we are. That is healing. So we recognize the need for healing. We recognize our need for healing. Now, if we have a physical ailment, it's relatively easy to see that we need to be healed. But in other cases, maybe we have a relationship issue or an issue with something in the world or in our life. And we can get distracted and say, well, the problem is with them, him, her, it, those people. Well, the other people may be needing healing as well. But quite honestly, that's none of my business, because I can do nothing about healing them. I can only heal myself. I can only be healed when I'm willing to say, I need to be healing. And it's helpful to recognize that the healing is always in consciousness. It's not necessarily in the conditions. The conditions simply are a way of getting our attention. And I have found that when healing is in consciousness, very often the conditions will heal themselves, but not always. So it's important not to have any expectations as to what healing looks like. Healing can look like anything at all. Conditions may change or they may not change when healing takes place, but we'll know it. You'll know when you're healed. So we recognize our need for healing, number one. Number two, we turn first to God for help. How do we turn to God? By meditating, by asking for guidance, by affirming divine order. We turn to God first, and then we turn to human beings as we are directed, as we are guided to do so. So this is not saying that we don't need human beings, that all we need to do is to pray and it will be fixed. That's not necessarily true. God works through people. God works in mysterious ways. God works in infinite numbers of ways. So there's no solution that we should rule out. What's important is to recognize that what's crucial is that all true solutions have a spiritual basis. Why do all true healings have a spiritual basis? Because we are innately spiritual beings. We are not innately human. Our human nature can be healed, but the true healing is when we realize our spiritual nature. Not just taking a pill or having something fixed externally. That may be the healing at one level, but the true healing is in consciousness always. Dr. Carl Jung, who really participated in, unknowingly in a way, the beginning of the Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12-step recovery movement, told someone that the only cure for alcoholism was a spiritual awakening. That the individual was looking for spirit in the bottle, looking for spirits in the bottle rather than the spiritual experience. So, turn to God first. All healing is of a spiritual basis. But sometimes the conditions need to be addressed before we can be healed. And again, I talked about alcoholism, and that's a classic example. Alcoholism can be healed first and foremost by not drinking. We don't stop there. We go beyond that to do the healing in consciousness. You know, if you were hit by a truck and somebody said, well, I'll pray for you, that would be nice. But I would say first call an ambulance, first get me to a hospital and pray for me, okay? So we turn to God first, and then we turn to whatever human methodologies and organizations are available to us. The next step is to be open to the gift. We begin to be open to the gift when we look at our response to the problem. You know, the problem may be a physical issue or a business problem or a relationship problem or employment or whatever. Or maybe it's a depression or anxiety. So we begin by looking at our response to the problem. In other words, how am I seeing the problem? Initially, we often see, excuse me, we often see the problem as something that's gone wrong. This isn't supposed to be here. It shouldn't be this way. We may feel like something has happened to us. We may feel victimized, like it's not my fault. I shouldn't have this disease, or I shouldn't have this relationship issue. It's not my fault. I shouldn't have this prosperity issue. It's not my fault. It's the fault of the economy, or the politicians, or my partner, or somebody else. That's a very normal response, and it's helpful to not feel guilty if you find yourself responding that way. But it's very helpful to say, is there another way to see this? Is there another way to see this rather than seeing it as something gone wrong? How else could I see it? Well, I love a proverb that comes from the Zen Buddhist tradition. And the proverb is this: the obstacle is the path. The obstacle is the path itself. In other words, what is in the way is the way. What seems to be a barrier is the path itself. So if we look at the obstacle and be willing to see it as an opportunity for transformation, sort of like when the Old Testament story of Jacob, when he wrestled with the angel, he says, I will not let you go until you bless me. So rather than trying to get rid of our problems, what if we said to our problem, I will not let you go until you bless me. I will not let you go until I find the gold within this issue. And the way we do that is to explore the symptom. Listen to it. Let it be your teacher. So we begin, we're looking at where the crack is in the clay Buddha, putting flashlight into the crack. So we look at the symptom, we pay attention to it, we listen to it. Because the solution lies within the heart of the problem. Whereas our poet friend Rumi says, the antidote is in the venom. I love that statement. The antidote is in the venom. So we look at what we call the problem, and in a sense, we almost welcome it. Let it be your teacher. Make friends with it. Now, it's not about trying to analyze. That's very important, to not try to analyze or interpret. That's not what we're doing. We're looking for the problem to be our teacher. And as we're willing to take that stance, then we will find ourselves not necessarily being given the answer, but we'll find ourselves living the answer. And I love what Rilke says in his letters to a young poet, beautiful book. And one of the excerpts from that book, he says he's writing to this young poet who has all sorts of questions, and because he wants to be a full-time poet and he loves poetry, but he's can't make a living at it, et cetera, et cetera. And he has issues, emotional issues. And Rilke writes to him and he says, don't seek the answers. At present, you need to live the question. You need to live the question. Perhaps then you will gradually, without even noticing it, find yourself living the answer. So, just to summarize, we begin by recognizing that there's a need for healing. I need to be healed. I recognize that there's a blessing in this. So I shift my attitude from this is a problem that doesn't belong here to one of this is a blessing in disguise. And then I begin to look at the symptom. I look at the crack, knowing that the solution lies in the heart of the problem. And then I trust. I trust, and I know that as I ask, I will be answered, and that the answer may not be written in the sky, but the answer will be lived in my life. It will be revealed to me in whatever way is appropriate. So this, my friends, is the beginning of the quest of wholeness. And I look forward to sharing with you on Tuesday evening. And I hope that you take the course and stay with it for 8 full weeks. And Reverend Richard is a great teacher, and he will be a great facilitator of that book. So thank you once again, Rich, for the opportunity to be here and to share with you all this evening.